All right,
Hey
you
Pace,
ready?
I think we're good.
Okay,
If you want to
great.
get started.
Sure. I'll be happy to. Hello, everybody. It's great to see your faces. The discussion is that Kinsey asked me to talk about is this topic of visual communication. And this is helpful not only for your career, but now that we've been into this 6 or 7 weeks of the COVID-19, I have been on a lot of business calls and I have had business leaders emailing me just how disastrous things are and people using Zoom or Meetup or Skype or Google Hangouts or WebEx or whatever it is that they're using. Everybody's using a little something different. So just while I'm thinking about that, it is important for you when you are in the business world to get comfortable with all of these formats because you're going to want to adapt more to the client. So there might be times that you can send them, if they're not used to it, your link, but I find that I move around between all of them. I have some preferences. Zoom is really good. I love Blue Jean just for the look and the feel. So just make sure you know about these different virtual communication tools so it doesn't catch you by surprise when you're in the business community. So I'm going to give you just a few tips, maybe talk for about 15 minutes, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions. But you know me, if you want to interrupt and ask a question or ask for clarification, feel free to ask. And Kinsey, if you'll just look at the chat function or something if I'm not paying attention. But you can also just speak up, raise your hand. We can be casual for this. So some specific things about when you're doing your virtual communications and presenting. One is, I would just say that it still matches your brand. So I had a business leader that was having this argument with me about, well, this is just where my desk is at my house. And, who cares? It's the people that I work with every day. And then they were debating, but what if you all of a sudden get on the phone with a client? Does it match your brand or what it is? So always think about where you're doing it, what it looks like. I always say if people are doing it in their offices, so it's not during the pandemic, make sure, like, if you work at a particular company, like I was talking to an executive the other day from Tractor Supply. This particular CFO has like some of the antique tractors from Tractor Supply, and he's got some awards that Tractor Supply has won, not necessarily he has won. So, put that on your shelf that's behind you and make sure that even what's behind you reflects your brand and what it is. So just think about that. Like if I looked at you right now, what is your brand and does it represent those key brand personality things that you want to have? And I'm happy to critique anybody right now if they want me to about what your brand is currently by just what you look like right at this moment. But we do that. Remember all this quick association that we quite often do. The hardest part of virtual communications is the lighting. And I'm fortunate that I have sunrooms off the back of my house upstairs and downstairs, and I'm here in my downstairs office. The only thing I did was move my desk. I mean, this is actually just a big table here, and I just moved it so that the sun is directly in my face. So this works really well for almost all the time during the day. No lighting is needed. I don't have any lights on. Now at night, I have to really pump up by putting extra lamps and lights behind my monitor to make sure the light, just like with you taking a picture, is straight on your face. So I love people that have like lights off to the side of their face. So it's kind of like, on the side, and you have to like turn your face to have the sun. So just look at where your lighting is and make sure you have enough lighting and not too much lighting so it just looks natural. And some of that probably is just move your desk around or change it in a different direction so that you come across really clear with the lighting. And do think about what's behind you because it is, I know it's hard. And, I've had executives that are in the only quiet space in their whole house is in their bedroom. And I'm like, okay, I get it, but I'd rather not see your bed the entire time. Like it just feels weird. So like move your desk in front of the window so I actually see the dresser or something behind you, not the bed. So move things around, move plants and whatever you need so that it matches your brand. Now, the positioning is also big in virtual communications. I think of it much more like live TV and doing live TV. So, the camera, and I'll just try to point this out, you should have not more than about 2 inches. In fact, I could probably use a tad more off the top of your head. So move your monitor around so that you feel the space, but that you don't have too much space. You're not too far back, but you're also now in social media, there are people that are doing these funky, weird things, or, that they come down on top. But for business, it should feel like you're sitting at the person's table. So I like the camera to either be straight above or ideally slightly above. So mine's about this much above my eyes, my camera. Now, if your camera, mine is on a monitor sitting in the middle. If your camera is on the side, it's harder because you've got to still always look directly in the camera and through that camera. So think about your positioning. And I also like it to where you can use some hands right through here versus, some people cut themselves off all the way down. You just want it to feel like you're sitting around a table in that natural sense. The sound is also big. Many people are using pods like AirPods. So the AirPod is great for you because it helps you to hear clearly, but it doesn't help you sound clear. So if we went around right now and practiced saying hello, some of you might, because of the size of the room, it might sound perfectly fine. Others of you, because maybe it's a larger room or a more narrow room, are going to sound like you're in a cave, right? So it just sounds more hollow in your sound. So I was watching, if you watch some of the Zoom training and some of the virtual training, they almost all use little headphones. I feel very J-Lo, which kind of goes with my K-Pace thing, but it does help. You don't have to speak as loud. I can hear really clearly, but the sound almost always comes through clearly. So whatever you use, I will say, I've just ordered through Amazon these 2 little microphone speakers that I'm going to put out so that when there's 3 of us here in the room, or my husband and I are on the phone with someone else, we can hear. We're having trouble hearing because of where the speaker is coming through your computer or coming through your monitor. So it can help you in the meetings if you ever have multiple people in the meetings. What to dress? So this is, of course, I do have yoga pants on and flip-flops. So, hands down, I've worn jogging pants or yoga pants every single day, and mainly flip-flops, except for a few really big CEO meetings that I fully got dressed for. But I do think about what I'm wearing and how it matches. So I'm just going to use an example because she's sitting here at the top and she's very funny. Sarah, I love your gray sweatshirt against your gray wall, right? So she's just completely blended in with the wall. It's just basically your head, right, with the wall. So contrast is good, but also keeping it really simple. So try not to wear super bright colors. I mean, you could wear like a red or something, but you don't want mix of colors. So anytime you start using stripes or squares or patterns, it can get very busy very quickly. And sometimes, depending on how strong your camera is, it'll almost look distorted to other people. So try a solid, and that can help you to do that in dressing. Not necessarily, and just watch things, mainly women, but bracelets. I had someone in an advanced speaking class that was wearing bracelets, and every time they moved their hand, you could hear that extra jingle. So keeping it simple through that. Now, remember when we talked about persuasion communications way back in management communication days, and we talked about in persuasion of liking and attitude that you have your tone of your voice, your words that you're using, and your body language, right? So if 100% is the persuasive message, what do you remember that? How much is body language? If 100%, and you can just chat it in. How much is 100? If 100% is the persuasive liking message, how much of it do you remember was body language? Let's see what some of you say. 40%, 80%, 70, 90%. Yeah. Not quite 99%, but yeah. Okay. Yeah. Very good. So 55% of it is body language, right? 38% is tone and 7% is words. So just like you would in a live setting in a virtual communication, those are equally as important when you're doing the communications. I would even say, so let's start with body language. Your posture is really big. Now, sometimes if I'm on a call for a really, really long time, I might, if I'm talking with people, I might actually sit back and have a conversation. I might even change my monitor because I'm literally going to be on this call for 6 hours or something. So I might kick back for a minute just because I'm listening, I'm taking notes, other things that I'm doing. But if it's a shorter call that I'm doing, I just like I would at any business meeting that I'm in, I'm going to sit up more and almost not lean too far forward, but lean up. I'm still going to use my hands. So let's say that I said, Ryan, what do you think about this? I might actually reach out my hand to bring you into the conversation. So you can use that more naturally to make a point. This is a big idea that we're dealing with. I've got two things I'd like us to talk about today. So using those gesturing and using your facial expressions is really big because now I can't read and feel the energy of the room. So this is the most exhausting part of doing this is if I say something positive, I have to look positive because you can't feel it. You can't feel if my energy. Now, all of you know me, so you know my energy, but let's say I've never met you before and I say, I'm really excited about what we're doing here. You might say, she doesn't sound very excited or look very excited. So it's even more important that you bring that facial expression in and use your hands naturally. Eye contact. This is also hard. If you've done, I just had a friend that just did an all-day board meeting with a major Fortune 500 company. She's a legal counsel for the company. And she said that they had the meeting for 8 hours and they had 3 breaks that were really short. And you had to pay attention during the entire meeting because you didn't know when you were going to get called on and you couldn't read the room very well because you're trying to find other people's expression and just how hard it is. But if I get asked a question, and let's just say, so I'll take Marley, you're kind of down here on my left. So let's say that you asked a question. So unmute yourself and say hello to me.
Hi, Pace.
Okay, so if I see you and I want to talk back to you, my natural tendency is to look down here where you're sitting because I want to actually look at you.
Mm-hmm.
But for everybody else, it doesn't look like I'm looking at you. So you're going to ask me a question. I might glance down to see it because I want to read the body language. But then when I answer, I have to say, hi, Marley, it's great to see you. Like I have to go back to the camera. And that's what I found even doing like a 2-day advanced speaking course is that I was so tired by the end of every day. And you might feel this even when you're on a Zoom call or a Zoom class, because if I'm really engaged, I have to look what they say. It's a television thing, but you have to look through the camera. Like I have to look at my little green light and imagine, Marley, for example, you're sitting on the other side of that green light, and I have to use my imagination to, in a sense, push energy through that one little light as if you're just sitting on my deck. And that's hard because I'm not seeing an actual person when I'm looking in the camera. But that's what you want to be able to do for your clients is use that eye contact. Now, for the actual speaking in the area of articulation, you do have to speak naturally. So don't, sometimes go faster, sometimes go slower. If you start to go to sleep, I might speed up and get the energy up. Other times I might slow down. But you want to even be more aware of filler words and filler phrases because this is like a more of a live setting. You'll hear the uhs and the ums and the gotchas and the stuff like that even more through this medium because we treat the medium like we do television. And you can hear that much more clearly when it comes through. So I'm very aware when I'm watching people on these Zoom calls, I can hear the filler words even more clearly than I might if you were standing in front of me, and because of your charisma or your personality, I might be more aware of that and not as aware of the filler words. So just make sure that you're recording yourself, and it's too easy to record yourself for it. All right, so I believe that covers most of the things in the sense of your eye contact, the tone of your voice, the use of your hands, your posture, the lighting, and the background. Let me share a few things that I'm discovering in how to engage the room. And I'd like for in just a second for you to share some things, maybe if you think about some favorite classes that you've taken. Well, let's just start with that. What has engaged you? If you think about classes that you have liked, and professors that maybe you would say that was an engaging class, what are some of the things that engaged you besides the SP? Like what kept you energized during the class? You can unmic yourself or you can chat it in, either one. Polls, okay. Simulations, okay. Oh yeah, so breakout rooms really does help. Good. Having video, addressing individuals now and then. Yeah, using people's names, cold calls, that's a big one. Yeah, I would agree with all of that. So if I've got a group of 15 people, and those of you that were in my advanced speaking class, there were about 15 of us, I guess there were. And we got so comfortable with each other, we didn't have to like raise our hands or anything. We just were talking over each other just like you would in a real meeting. And what happens is people will self-regulate. Right. So if Jack and Maggie start talking at the exact same time, you know, Maggie might just say, "Oh, Jack, you go ahead." And you just kind of self-monitor each other and just kind of let it flow more naturally. And that helps. But using people's names, just like you would in any other situation of a meeting, use people's names, make sure everybody has their agenda, everyone's really clear on the objectives, and have different people lead different sections. And rhythm of it changes even more. So when I think about a 90-minute class, I'm thinking about 10-minute rhythm changes. You know, we're going to go to a breakout. We're going to do this. We're going to go to a video. We're going to have music in the background. Whatever it is, you have to think of that even more in these situations. So going quickly, I might say, okay, let's spend 5 minutes, go to a breakout room and talk about X. And you can put the timer on it and let them go do it, and then say, but you're going to have to come back and report. So every team's going to come back to report. Have something that every single person has to answer. Maybe it's just a quick win of the week that you do with your business leaders, and everybody gives it, and they have to give it in less than 20 seconds. Something that gets everyone talking and engaged with that. I think chat certainly helps a lot, and helping people chat. In fact, it's interesting because I prefer to chat and use text. It drives me crazy when they put the thing on it so that I can't chat individually with people, because that's like my favorite thing to do during faculty meeting is to like chat individually with other faculty. Right? And so, but that also keeps me more engaged in some ways. So don't tell the dean that I do that, but it is a way, because I haven't seen some of these people in months, to say, oh, how is your family? Or I've been thinking about you because of this. So using chat function polls and doing that really well. I also do like to use the gallery view, so I'm using the gallery view right now. Now, what's a little harder is, of course, this goes to 3 pages, and I know because of bandwidth, people many times keep their video off. Make sure if you're doing business at home, especially this fall or the summer or this fall, that you just go ahead and have great bandwidth. I mean, I upgraded to Comcast 300 and, paying a lot more per month for it, but it's made a huge difference in my home. I had an IT person come out and make sure I had fast internet in the whole house and every corner that I could, because it was worth the investment, since all of my business and all my consulting was now going to be in this format. So make sure that you have that. And if it's, if we had a group of 15 for advanced communications and everybody was live video the entire time. Now, saying that, I know it's exhausting. So we were very good at taking breaks. These business leaders that are having like 3-hour meetings with no breaks, I don't even, I mean, not even a 90-minute class, if you were not going into breakout rooms, is way too long. You need to give people time to break. So I might say, okay, everybody turn off your video because we're going to do this exercise, but I want everybody to stand up. All right, so getting people to move around and to do things. Or maybe I say, hey, let's stand up and have this conversation because I can tell everybody's sitting. So I tell everybody to move their monitors, then stand up, right? So they're not flashing anyone. And then to know that they're going to sit. So try to keep people fully engaged in those conversations, and the video really does help. But that's only if you're actually engaging people, like you're actually saying people's names and asking their opinion on something. Can
Hey, K Pace.
Yeah, go ahead.
Brian had a question. Actually, it looks like you have 2 questions in the chat if you wanted to see those.
Yeah, so can chat undermine your leadership of a meeting? Yeah, I think it could. If I think it would depend on what, of course, you're using it for. I certainly don't want, if I've got a team of people that are have a tendency to have offline conversations about something, to be political or persuasive, and I knew going in that that team went to do it, I might block it so the chats can't happen. But the chat could be just something meaningful. Let's say I'm in a real life setting and I've got people talking over each other, and I've got 3 people over here on this opinion and 2 people over here on this opinion, and I can just feel that it's going to start getting contentious. I might just stop right there, and I might say, out of all that we're already hearing, what's the one solution you think we should do? I want everybody to participate in this. Let's put it down in one sentence. And I might have everybody think about it and then chat it in, and then we could look through those, and very quickly we could find what the majority is feeling and kind of what's happening overall. So that's a good way to use chat. When you have had an IT person come out, was that from Dandy or independent contractor or something else? Oh, interesting. So I have a independent contractor for my home. This has been I'm a big chicken and the egg kind of person. So I've got someone that I coach on uh, business strategy. My husband does this IT on business strategy. The IT people come in like 4 times a year and make sure everything is upgraded and everything looks good in our house, right? I have someone that I help her think about social media advertising because it's not her area at all. But she's a fashion consultant. She comes into my closet from time to time and says, throw these 5 things away. All right. So I'm a big chicken and the egg thing about sharing things, especially if I really value people's services and they want to hire me. I'm like, don't hire me. Let's do this. And so it's fun for both of us. So yeah, Vandy's not coming out to my house. Now they did, if I need them, they're great about asking questions. And I would say I'm using a variety of things because in my home office that I have all the time, I in some ways have better monitors and better equipment than I have in my own office. So I think it's important to have a really good home office, not just for these kinds of things that I believe will happen in the future too, but just so that if I have to be professional or I'm sick or something, but I still have to be on a meeting, I have that. Good. Breaks, broadband speed, pulse, videos prep. Okay, that's mainly the main things I had to share. So any other questions that you have for me that I might be able to answer, or things that you've been a part of that you've seen not worked, or just maybe other tips that you have as you have been on sessions? Don't be shy. Nobody's shy, but
I can say one. It was nice for professors, or if it was like a team meeting, for them to come on before and say, everybody turn your video on. This is kind of how we're going to run this whole meeting. And before it even started, just knowing exactly what it was going to look like. And yeah, I think that helped a lot with especially participation.
good. Yeah, I think setting about expectations for your business meetings. I know that I sent out saying, everyone's video needs to be up. Everybody needs to start muted. But if you want to unmute yourself. Or I'm hoping everyone is learning these tricks. Like you can just hit your space bar and it immediately unmutes you. So you don't have to like hit the little microphone or on or off. You can just hit the space bar and talk and then undo the space bar and it mutes. So those little tricks also help in keeping things engaged. But agendas, I would even say timed agendas. So exactly when we were going to have breaks, especially when I was doing an all-day event, exactly when the breaks were going to be, how long the lunch was going to be, so that people know, oh, I need to go get a snack. Let me go get a snack now. Now, I would say that that's also just a side thing. Like, unless we're having like happy hour or morning, I think having like something to drink is fine. Like it's not very distracting as long as I'm not slurping or something. But if I'm on mute and I have like a water bottle or something to drink, it's fine. It looks really odd when people are like cooking or like eating a full meal or eating a meal when no one else is. So just, don't do anything necessarily distracting. Oh, thought of something else. When you're listening in a business meeting, don't forget that your body language is just as important. So that's the only way that the business leader that's talking to you is ever going to know that you're interested in what that business leader is saying. So if you've got new things with your teams, you need to be like, if you're just listening, going, writing things down, shaking your head. If the person smiles, smile back, right? They have to know that you're listening, or they won't know if you're engaging in the conversation. And you'll stand out very quickly in a really positive way if you're listening to your boss or listening to a new manager and you're giving a lot of that facial expression and body language back to them. All right, other questions or tips?
Looks like Richard has a question in the chat.
Any tips on presentations with a shared screen, focus between the slides and you? Yeah. So this is as I've been watching a lot of these, I think these are really hard. I like to be able to share screen and go ahead and of course have the document ready, like the PowerPoint. So the PowerPoint comes up and I can still put people on gallery view. So I can see my PowerPoint on one side and I can still see people's facial expressions. This also is really helpful to have a sidekick, it could just be a friend, somebody on your team, asking them to look at the facial expressions because they might be able to see everything better. And because sometimes you can't see everybody, you have to scroll through to see everybody's picture. And so I might ask for someone to help be a moderator. So if they can tell, let's say the chief operations officer just rolled their eyes, right? They might say, hey, Kay Pace, could you share more about the process improvement portion of your proposal? Just to kind of cue it up to connect. I do like some of the advanced things you can do with share screen. So if you go to share screen, which I know you don't have on right now, but besides the whiteboard and others, the advanced thing is I can just do a portion of my screen. So I can actually click, I just want this part of my screen to be seen. I can do a second camera, and you also can just do music. So before meetings or between meetings, if I want to put on music, which I quite often like to do, I can click just for the music to come through, but not the Pandora or the Spotify to come through. So just play around with some of that area around sound, so that's helpful. But I would say everyone's a little different. So every time I go to WebEx versus Blue Jean, I have to get on early to help find how that really works, and usually I try to have somebody that knows something about IT that's there that I can co-host with that can help me troubleshoot very quickly too. Okay, so did I answer the question? Focus between slides and you. Yeah, so I will just say, let me just answer that part too. If the slides are up, most people are not going to be looking at me. They're going to be looking at the slides. And so I would say even more so, I might consider using more facial expressions, but I really have to think about my voice and making sure my voice is super engaging, even more with tone, because when the slides are up, people are looking at the slides more. quite often, which also means your slides need to be better, right? I can't really have those, bullet points of just 4 long phrases and nothing else, because people are just going to be reading it and reading along. And so I'd rather have less slides and make my slides really compelling is helpful. Do you think being fidgety comes across as distracting over video as it does in person? I think it depends on what it is. So I have a colleague that is always like bouncing his knee all the way through it, and I might not notice it in a video conferencing. I would notice it if I was sitting around the table. But if you're, clicking a pen or doing something odd, I love these people that think people can't tell if they're texting. Like, of course you can still tell if somebody's texting. And so, yes, I do think most of the time people can still tell you're being fidgety, but it's okay to be natural. I mean, if I'm on this all day or even an hour and I'm on with a meeting, I've got to do some of my normal things. So, I have a tendency to sometimes lean forward and look at the person. So, but I obviously don't want to do something crazy that looks odd.
I've got a question going back to like toggling between slides and people. I've got a second screen, so sometimes I'll, just to make it easy, like I'll put the slides on the other screen and then like have the gallery view still in front of me. But then I find myself like looking over at the screen, or even if I'm using the same screen, like the gallery's all on one side. Like sometimes I've had a meeting with like 4 people. So like I'm like looking over here. And so I'm kind of like thinking about going back to your point about like looking through the camera and portraying your energy through it. How do you balance that?
Yeah, I do find that's hard, and I played around with that the last couple of weeks. If it's a larger meeting, I do think the best thing is to have someone that is kind of the facilitator on the side, so I don't have to try to pay attention to the chat unless I'm leading the chat, like I want to get you to give a response. Now, in that situation, it looks pretty natural for me to kind of look at the chat and kind of look at it and what you're saying and the answering and engaging with it. But if I'm doing like a PowerPoint and really engaging in that, I want to be looking through the camera. And I would say, just like you would in a speech that you're giving, if I've got a PowerPoint, I realize it's not behind me, but you need to treat it the same way. So if the PowerPoint is over here, for example, I can see out of the corner of my eye, because I have another monitor over here too. I can see out of my corner of my eye what's on the screen, so it lets me know I'm on the right page, but I need to not be looking at that. All right, I need to spend most of my time at the camera. If you do it slightly, nobody's going to really notice. But if I'm looking really here at the screen to talk about the chart, like let's say I've got a chart over here, then it looks like I'm not looking at you. So in some ways, it's like doing the weather, right? On the person that's doing the weather reporter, I have to say, now here on the axis is here and here, even though it's way over here, to give that. So do practice some if it's a really important meeting, so that you keep as much as you can that eye contact through the camera. Good question. And that's what, and a facilitator will help, so that they can look at things or look at the questions that are happening. Any other questions?
I think Marianne had one in the chat.
Okay. Berla let go from jobs because they may not have updated their LinkedIn with that change. How should we preface communication we network virtually? Okay, so we're talking about LinkedIn. I just want to make sure I understand the question, Marianne.
Yes, sorry, I don't have my.
That's okay. That's okay. So just help me understand specifically, are you asking about how we use LinkedIn now in a different way? Or
If you're trying to reach out to people and to network with them and you're not sure if they even still work there anymore, given that there have been a lot of transitions recently.
Yeah. So I think the good news is most people are really sensitive about that. I find that especially almost everyone that's furloughed is like super open about it. Like Bridgestone had like 3,000 people in their corporate office that all got furloughed for 2 months. And they're just, they're talking about like a business decision. So I always like to treat people, if they still have on their LinkedIn profile that they work there, treat them as if they still work there, no matter what it is, right? Now, they might respond back to you and say, well, I'm furloughed July 1st, so the person you need to contact is X, sort of thing. Or they might say, oh, I no longer work there. And then they say, oh, I guess I need to update my LinkedIn. So do go ahead and treat them like that. Now, I probably wouldn't do a long question or something in networking, but I think it's okay to reach out and say, you know, I'm really interested about what you've done at your company. I would love to have 10 minutes to talk with you about that. And even if they're no longer there, they're probably happy to talk with you about their company, for example, because they still know a lot about that company. I can tell you you've worked over 8 years at X company to do it. Now, a side note on LinkedIn, just because I just took this great LinkedIn course, is that I'm getting ready to redo all of my LinkedIn. You know, we have LinkedIn profiles that have been used like resumes more than anything. And so one of the big trends is to make it a little more personal. That doesn't mean you don't put your resume, but make sure that in your description, the description is now in first person. There's always been this debate, should it be in third person or first person? And mine is written more like a bio, like Kimberly Pace is professor at blah, as opposed to if I was writing it and you were reading it on behalf of me. So just a side note, I'm getting ready to work on my LinkedIn and make it a little more interpersonal without being too casual. All right, I don't want to take up too much time for anyone, so I will stay on for another, 5 or 10 minutes. So anyone that wants to ask questions or have any other great advice, and please feel free. Kinsey, thanks for asking me. I miss seeing everyone very much. Please stay in touch. Let me know how the career's going, the summer's going, if I can be helpful to you, if I can offer any advice, reach out. And I hope to see you all next year at some point. Thanks.
Thank you, K-Pace.
You're welcome. If there are any other questions, I'll stay on.